Welcome back to the third and final episode of the GP7 project, where we took a Athearn Bluebox GP7 that was in the Baltimore and Ohio 1950s paint scheme, and it was a repaint into this 1960s paint scheme, along with some weathering. And this paint scheme was very prevalent in the early 70s, which is when I'm modeling for those units that Chassis System had not gotten around to repainting at that point in time. So obviously had some miles on it at that point, and I tried to weather this one to reflect that. Also included a remotoring, new trucks as well. And obviously a sound decoder, which is now in. That was the delay. Took me a little while to order that and then install that. In addition to all of that, there's a gentleman in my NMRA division, Dennis, who put 21, I think, LEDs into an SD40-2, and I mean, he had 2 surface-mounted LEDs behind each number board, headlights, ground lights, step lights, classification lights. I think he had a beacon on the top of the cab. I didn't go to that extent, but due to Dennis's LED work, he did offer became the inspiration for me doing a little bit more, and as a result, did some work on this. So while it wasn't part of my original plan, I added ground lights on just underneath the cab on both sides. Countersunk surface-mounted LEDs into the metal frame. And it is one of the nice things about the Athearn Bluebox with the white metal frames. It takes a lot of milling to get the Northwest Shortlines motor in. Not a lot, but some milling. But it's just nice soft metal, so it machines very easily with a Dremel motor tool. And so far, interesting as well, too, that this Northwest Shortline motor, this is the only one of that type I've used. I've used some Mashima can motors, and I've got some Proto 2000s that came with can motors. I've got an Athearn Genesis, and I run some Athearn Bluebox with the stock Athearn open frame motors, with some minor modifications that I've found online to help improve their performance. And with the TCS Wow sound decoder, they all work very, very, very well. Interestingly, this Northwest Shortlines, I've got the auto notching set at the lowest setting for both the low and high value, which is supposed to represent notch 1 and notch 8, and then of course it interpolates and does everything in between. At both of them, I think I have them both set at 0 out of 255, and it'll notch, and you'll see momentarily as it pushes these cars up the hill, it'll notch going up the hill. But unless I haven't tried like a 50 car string of cars yet to see if it'll do it on level. But most of my other ones I can get to start notching up a little bit even when they're pushing a longer string. And because of the grades on my railroad, which are 2.3 and 2.5%, I generally weight my locomotives so they'll push or pull 8 freight cars and a caboose up a grade. And that generally means weighting a 4-axle locomotive to about 12 or 13 ounces. This one is a little on the heavier side. It's about 13.2. I can't remember, 13.3 perhaps. You saw in one of the previous videos, I think part 2, where I added some lead shot in a resin cast to be a motor, basically a motor base or a motor mount. So it'll be interesting. It could be that when I just did the install, I was overzealous with lubrication, and maybe that'll self-resolve. Certainly better to have an overly efficient motor and this problem than the other situation where you have a motor that draws like 1 amp when it's not even pulling cars. So I guess not the worst problem in the world, but always a learning situation with model railroading. So we'll push this string up the hill, and I'll let you see the new locomotive. interesting phenomenon with the LEDs. You probably see in the camera that it's got a little bit of a flicker or pulse to it. That is not visible to the naked eye, so I think it's just one of those scenarios where when you try and video you know, a TV screen or something like that, it gets some type of reaction. So I think that's what's happening here. On this one, I've got standard incandescence for the headlights, and when it stops moving forward, it'll dim down. But there's no way I could get a incandescent to fit for the ground lights, so it's, I guess, the LEDs. So yeah, still very happy with the ground lights. It was worth the extra work, and again, I don't think I'll go to the extent of putting loads of LEDs in different locomotives, but that might be something I start doing more and more, is doing ground lights, because I think it's an interesting effect, and particularly, you know, on my layout, most of us, we have, you know, lighting almost directly above, so having some ground lights really helps, you know, highlight the side frames of the trucks a little bit. So, all right, well, that's it. That's the GP7 project. Obviously, I've got some wires to, I'm not sure if you can see them, to hide, and you know, the GP7 blue boxes never came with windows, so I'll probably come up with some solution to put some windows in the cab doors, and maybe, you know, a slider or something, or at least to give the appearance of a sliding window in the cabs. It doesn't have the right horns. I think the other one, the one that's still painted in the Empire Builder scheme, looks like from the photos, the 5889 actually had a Nathan 5 chime on it. I think I have a Nathan 3 chime in my parts box, so maybe the other one, when I convert that one, it'll get closer, but we'll do maybe a 3 chime Nathan. Which is interesting, because B&O tended to look to use a lot of Leslie air horns. Maybe it was C&O who did the 5 chimes, and as I mentioned, I painted it and lettered it for C&O because I needed the dynamic brakes, given that the Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh line had some topography to it. So that's it for now. I will definitely do some operation video, probably starring 5889 here, but that might be till after Christmas, and hopefully I have a better camera instead of the cell phone situation that I've been torturing everybody with up until now. So that's it for now, and thanks for watching.